Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 19 of Vivel Talks. Today, we will be talking with Guy about the co living concept, what it is about, and the future. But before that, hi Guy, it's great to see you again. How are you?
Good, thank you. I'm calling you here from Lisbon, entering the rain season, but all good.
Ah, so like for me, Lisbon and rain does not really resonate. They don't go
No,
along
that's
with
not
each other.
it's not the reason why I moved here, but I'm really glad it's raining because it hasn't been in like 6 months. So that situation is usually good.
We still have warm weather here in Istanbul, which is quite unusual. We usually have lots of rain, cool weather, and just like in November, but it's really like unusually warm now here. Lars, what about you?
Netherlands is pretty cold, but I would say it's a bright day out today. So I think that going
Ah,
out for a walk later shouldn't be a bad thing.
okay.
Nice.
I mean, always like if you have sunshine, if it's bright, it's okay. Okay, so Guy, I mean, I met Guy when we were at Remotion Fest in Burgos, and he was this guy on the stage with endless energy and just like putting his heart and soul on the stage, and so that's how we got connected. And he'll be featuring his set in Vival in Sevilla. So first of all, thank you for that, for accepting our invitation.
My
Let's talk
pleasure.
about how you came up with the idea. What is the story behind your initiatives and the how you started living the with the co-living space mentality?
Good question. All right, so maybe we can go back. Personally, I think on the meta level, there's a part of me that's very desiring to, or at least in my 20s, I had a huge urge of like connecting with others. Um, and I think like since kind of like when I was 14, I grew up in Germany all my life, and then when I was 14, I lived in Peru. And for the first time, I saw how people were actually connecting, like in a completely different way, like the Latin way, like really warmly. And that's kind of, and then when I went back to Germany, over there it was like everybody was in their own corner. There was no real human connection. I was like really annoyed. So like I built kind of like my 20s against that and in favor of like a life in favor of connection. And then when I was in 2016, I had a little breakdown and I decided to change my life because it wasn't sustainable anymore. And one of the things I did was I sold my belongings and I wanted to become a nomad. One of my best friends was a digital nomad at the time. And to me, that was very inspiring. I love to travel and I wanted to also do something that was aligned with me and while having the freedom to be with the people I love. And and then, so when I decided to go on this nomadic journey, um, I moved to Barcelona, but I just didn't have. I had like 1,500 euros in my bank account or something around these lines. And so, if my friend would decided, hey, why don't we take a big house because we don't even have money for ourselves for an Airbnb. So why don't we take a big house and see where there's other people in our shoes, and we just did that. And so we called it a lifestyle engineering house, and it was all about lifestyle design. We did like workshops like on shadow work, on finances, on a bunch of stuff. And we had the time of our lives. Like it was for me, it was really powerful. I got introduced to concepts such as self-love for the first time, met girlfriends, met business partners, got introduced to psychedelics, and a lot of things that suddenly weren't, that were in my environment that suddenly became my environment. And so that's how the co-living journey started. And and so since in between like 2017 and 2019, over 2 years, like we built like different co-living spaces in Barcelona and Tulum in Mexico, in Bali, Indonesia, and then in 2019 I did a switch where now that phase of organizing co-living for myself was over, and then I rather focus on like, okay, how can I now help others that are doing this at large scale, and how can I help them to create really life-enhancing experiences? And how can I help more, whether it's entrepreneurs or people that self-organize themselves to really create this experience well?
It's really great how you started it and how it evolved. So, for our audience who are not really familiar with the idea of co-living, can you just describe what a co-living life looks like? Like for anyone that wants to just experience that and just like see if it's a fit for them. Can you just tell a bit about that life at a co-living?
Yes. So maybe we can also like see, because co-living, a lot of people are using the words nowadays. So I think it's, first of all, let's maybe state that co-living is very generally it's living with other people and sharing resources. So concretely speaking, flat sharing is co-living, is a form of co-living. Um, Technically speaking, like a student residence or even like a senior housing residence could be considered co-living. So that's just like to as beforehand to know that okay, co-living is kind of like hotel or like or hostel. It doesn't mean much. It can take on different forms. Um, the type of co-livings that I prefer is like, so flat sharing, for example, is nice, but only if you really know the people. Because with 3 or 4 people, like if there's not a good fit, like I lived in one like student housing where I was sharing a flat with 2, 3 others, and it just wasn't a match, and it was really hard. Um, the favorite types of co-living that I had was more sharing space with around 8 to 12 people. That was really cool. So we had our own house in Bali, or in Barcelona we had a big apartment with like 8 different rooms. People had their private rooms, so we're sharing their room. We had like a big kitchen, we had a big like hangout space, and then a workspace. And it was also very important to have a dedicated work area and one non-work area. And then our life was like this, it's like you once a week we have like a community dinner that's organized by the founders. Then so that's already there happening on Friday. And then usually the week looks like there's always something happening. There's always somebody offering something like, hey, I'm going out there, or I'm organizing this thing tonight, or I want to watch a movie, or I'm running tomorrow at 6. Like, so the cool thing about living in co-living is that a lot of people, um, um, especially at the beginning when they move in, they have this like high drive of like, yeah, I want to create experiences here and memories, and then they're gonna actually invest into offering things, and then so it creates this vibe of you have a lot of like stimulation, and yeah, it's really cool.
I love how you described. I love how you also described the change in your personality from wanting to build it yourself to being able to say, okay, I take my learnings and I'm going to share that with other people that are building out concepts. And I think that transition is something that I think a lot of people go through when kind of they ran into something that kind of feels like, oh, this is quite good, like the thing that you experience on your own when you're building it. And then that feeling, like bringing, like you see a smile on both of our faces when you're sharing your story, because I probably in some capacity resonate with that feeling of, okay, I went through something maybe by accident, it really turned out well, and now how can I deliver this kind of the same value that I experienced to other people so that they can build that experience with their authenticity. And I think that co-livings are kind of an embodiment of the authenticity of whoever creates it. And I think if you have the right foundations, then a lot of things are possible when you're creating a space. And like you said, humans are normally tend to give suggestions and say you want to come along because that's in our nature. And I think that is what the power is of co-living, because it creates its own life. It's like, I think the moment that you jump in it, you cannot control it, because it's more so you provide the container, and then from there a lot of things will start to kind of naturally start to flow, because every person is unique in that space. So that's why I would ask the question, how do you feel about curation when it comes to the spaces that you basically bring people to? Like, how do you make sure that maybe that match that you described with the roommates that wasn't so great for you, like how as an organizer you can kind of change that and maybe say, okay, this is really, really great curation models that maybe help you to get better matches between people that would stay?
Yeah. Super important point. And I guess number one is make sure that there's an application system, because there's actually there's quite a few spaces where you don't even have one. But like, look, the thing in terms of curation is that it actually is really hard to understand. Like, I think it's really hard to understand, like, to be 100% sure that you have a right decision making just by having somebody on the phone. Ideally, you want to meet people in person, like beforehand, before they move in. Like, the best case scenario, I think, is like if, for example, you would have a co-living space that would actually invite potential residents, meet them for a dinner and stuff, and really get to know them. I think that'd be ideal. Usually, it's not the case because you have like new people from the co-living space moving from outside cities or outside countries, so you don't have the time. For me, I jumped on a call with some people. So we had an application form, people had to apply online, and then I would jump on a call with them. If it was already a friend of a friend, then usually it's already like a red or green flag or good sign. And if not, then I would really try to understand what are the drives, and I would ask them a few questions like, how do you see yourself contributing to the community? And then usually you would see like you would see whether that reaction would be, or that question would trigger like a I don't know reaction, or maybe one that's more like, I don't know, but actually, so one guy, for example, was like, I don't know, but like actually I'm a masseur, so we could set up a massage table and I could give massages, so like people just came up with creative ideas for those who wanted to. And so yeah, I would suggest like a few questions like that. Did you experience anything, like, I don't know if you two ever lived in co-living spaces where there was like some type of like onboarding or interview process or any way where you felt like, oh, they're really making sure that these are the right people?
So I have one question. So what is your recommendation to anyone who is interested in starting their own co-living business? Where should they start from? Is it like, finding the right place? Is it like, finding the right concept? What would you say is the first step?
Okay, so I guess first step is like I would ask to like, what's your intention behind this project? Because co-living needs a certain amount of scale in order to actually be a sustainable business. Like when I was running a space and there was like 15 people per house, I was paying my bills, but or I was paying my housing bills, but like that's kind of it, right? So it's really hard actually, like even if you have like 300 euros margin per person, it's really hard to really make a good business out of this if you don't have a certain threshold, or if you don't go really prime. So why am I sharing this? I'm sharing this because I think it's important to like first set intentions. Like, do you want to create a co-living because you want to live in there? Is that your primary drive? Is it because you want to create a side business stream? Is it because it should be a main business stream? Like these, because that's gonna create like different types of co-living. And then after that, look, if you want to be a very serious co-living operator, creating co-living business, you need a certain amount of scale. I would say like be above 50 beds. That means that you're gonna have to find a way now to open up spaces. And then I think there's two main models. One model is like taking houses, mainly in the suburbs, converting them. This is a very nice and stable model, like putting around like 15 residents per house, maybe making them even like themed or like by like really like niche houses, maybe one for artists, one entrepreneurs. So that could be an option. Or option number two is then like taking more like several apartments, ideally an entire building, that then you can run. And yeah, that requires, look, it's, and then here there's so unfortunately there's a lot of different models, right? So you can be just operating a co-living business, or you could be operating a co-living business and owning the building where you operated in, right? And there's a lot of co-living operators that want to do both, because then you can capitalize both on the real estate asset and the operations, but it requires a lot of investment, and that investment right now is, co-living is still a bit shaky, or not shaky, it's still being established, and a lot of, especially if you go to a bank and you want to get a building to turn into a co-living business, it might still be a bit difficult. So
I think the why, in combination with your business goals, I think is the way, like what I basically am listening to you, and I feel like first it's establishing what are your personal goals with this project. Like maybe that's just the first thing that you have to figure out for yourself. I always say, is it for living for yourself? Like, do you want to live, or do you want to see it as a rental property or rental concept? Because that completely changes the perspective and what a return on investment looks like. If the return on investment to you is I want to live for free, then that's your case. But if your case is I want to build a successful business, then I think it is a different set of rules that go with that. And I think the why is the one thing that I believe will set apart any project from another, is because if you don't have a strong reason why you're doing it, or for who you know really strongly who you want to bring together, I feel like that what I hear you say is like, if you have those two things kind of figured out for yourself, then you can start to actually build from that point, because you know, okay, these are the set of rules because this is the outcome I want to have. And then on the other side, this is the types of people I want to attract, and this is the intention that I have for the space. And I feel like that's a great, I mean, I think it's a concise answer for someone starting, right? Like figure out those two things, and then from there you can start to figure out more details. But I feel like that's the starting mentality that you're describing.
Yeah. Yes. And then because like true, honestly, there's so many different ways. So for example, one of my dear friends, Mark, he wanted to enter Coliving, and so he created this brand Charisma. And at the beginning, I told him like, look, like just organize pop-up co-living spaces, get a feeling for it, become an operator, like get a feel of what it is to live in community. So he organized a few pop-up co-living spaces, and then decided, okay, now it's time for something long-term. But then he realized that long-term co-living doesn't suit him, and then he pivoted towards a social club. So love it, beautiful journey. But then that was because like Mark really wanted to like he himself be close to that community. It was like it was his desire. So for him, this journey makes sense. For somebody else, that maybe somebody that's already a real estate entrepreneur, a real estate developer that suddenly enters co-living but wants to enter it from a completely different angle, the story is going to be different. The story here will then be like they're going to spend maybe like 2 years finding like one building owner to do a revenue share agreement for a big building. And then they're going to open this, and then like the next step will be like 2 or 3 years later. Then they're going to have like enough credibility to partner up with a big developer to open up a 500 space residence, right? And so the journey just looks completely different in these cases. And yeah, good luck finding your own journey, dear listener.
So, I mean, you were just like mentioning a lot about the community, and I think this is kind of like the fuel for co-living. Can you just like talk more about how to nurture that community, how to create your niche community, and the importance of that related to the co-living concept?
Yeah. Look, I guess there's a few fundamental principles. So, for example, in order to build community, first, don't have conflict. So, what I mean by that is like, I was on a phone call with a co-living operator in Los Angeles like a year ago, and they told me like, yeah, I don't understand my residents. They don't. We do events and they don't come. And I'm like, okay, that's strange. Why? We dig a bit into, and then turns out the residents have been complaining for the last 4 weeks that the front door was broken and that strangers were like breaking in. And so I was like, guys, like if you don't take care of security, forget about all of the events you're hosting. Nobody's gonna come, right? So I'm just mentioning this example because in co-living spaces, if for example the kitchen is a big mess and it leads to like conflict the whole time, or like if there's some fundamental, or like for example Wi-Fi doesn't work, like then it doesn't matter what you do in terms of community building, you have to fix the basics, period. So well, that's the first principle. And then after that, to me, community comes by actually creating alignment between people. Like the way we connected was, for example, through music. Now it's also through like similar topics of interest. So like I think the role as of an operator or somebody, a community manager, whatever you want to call it, is to create ties between people and find the alignment. So find the alignment in terms of values, in terms of interest, in terms of activities. And so one of the best ways to do it is like finding common grounds. So offering, like for example, creating, that's why common dinners once a week are amazing because everybody is into food. Everybody has to eat either way. So it kind of works. And then also making, then for another example was instead of organizing events yourself, which is coming from a good intention, try to empower the people to host their own things. For example, when I was in Barcelona, one of my residents came. I was like, "Hey, Geek, can I get your help in terms of marketing?" Because I was running a marketing agency at the time. And and then I said, like we have like four or five marketing experts in this house. Like, why don't you organize a mastermind? She was like, "Oh yeah, cool idea." And then I was like, "What do you need help from me?" And then she said, "I just need like 50 euros to buy some popcorns or whatever." And I was like, "Sure," and I'll help you with the promo. And then she hosted that, and it was so good that she hosted like 4 times. And so to me, that was the first time that I realized, hey, instead of organizing everything by myself, I can just try to understand what are the needs of my residents. Maybe somebody needs a mastermind, somebody needs a music, somebody needs more sports in their life. And then trying to figure out, okay, how can we make that happen? Potentially those residents would even want to lead something if they knew that they could. So, so yes, take care of the basics. Try to find connection or alignment points between people, and not only organize events by yourself, but really try to understand how can the place and the other people actually support the residents I'm having, and how can we create things that would actually leave them touched.
I think you touched a very important point, because I think it's just like really important to make a community as self-sustaining, so like it becomes like an ecosystem where it's just like feeding itself. We truly believe in that concept, and with Lars, and we've been just like talking about that as well. And I think community is the power now. So you are just like as powerful as your community is, and if the community is just like self-sustainable and just like creates an ecosystem mindset, then I think that's the way to go. And that brings me to the question about the future. So how do you see the co-living idea evolving in, let's say, the next, I'm not going to say 10 years, because 10 years is just like feels like a century in today's world. So like in a couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Um, okay, look, there's different angles. First, we're gonna see suddenly, like, I think new models are popping up, especially for we're gonna see a lot of like big residences. So, for example, student housing. When you look at like the student housing industry, there was a lot of flat sharing, and then like in the 90s, 2000s, we saw a lot of these big student residences being built. I think the same thing is going to happen with co-living too. And so that means that we're going to have some co-living spaces. They're going to be called co-living, and it's literally going to be like 300, 400 people sharing like space and stuff, which is going to be co-living as well, but it's going to be a completely different experience than these 15 people that live in a house together. So the first thing is, I don't know in 5 years, but people might really not know what co-living, like if you say I did a co-living experience, you probably don't even know what that person really experienced. I also think that's going to be more and more, I'm seeing like so many individuals, like when I say individuals, means people with no experience in real estate or in co-living, that are really curious about this, that really wants to open a space, whether it's they see it as okay, like as kind of this, side income stream for their family, whether they see it as kind of a next adventure for themselves, or whether they're really desiring to live in community. So I'm seeing really a lot of people that are interested in creating co-living spaces, and I think the big change that's going to happen is that right now people stay in co-living for rather short time. When I mean short, it's like sometimes more like a month, sometimes it's 12 months, but usually people don't stay longer than 2 years. And what I'm curious about is, can we create spaces and also ownership models that would allow people to co-live, but for a long time, for 10, 15, 20 years? Could I, for example, create a co-living space in which I could spend my 40s and 50s in? And how would that look like, knowing that most probably I might actually have kids, right? So like my hope is that in 10 years from now, Mina, if we take your question, in 10 years from now, there is a space that is adapted, whereby, people were, yeah, whereby people are really, where the space is really created for people to stay there long term. And right now it's not the case. Right now spaces are created for people still to move out after a year max. And and I think that will be the next evolution of co-living.
I
Ownership
think
will
this is
change.
great to hear. Yeah, exactly. This is what I was like going to say. This is like, the idea, the mindset of just like owning a place versus this. So it's not only about the experience, the community, but like how we see things, how we just like get the ownership idea about like, either a house or anything like, the root cause for shared economy. And so, as we're just like coming towards the end of our session, I would like to ask you how you resonated with Vival. So, all the things that you have been talking about, Colive, and by the way, I would also like to share your website. So, if anyone is interested to learn more about what you have been sharing with us about the co-living, the ideas, and just like the resources, this is the address. And you also have a book, right? So the
Yes,
art of co-living
this
book.
guy,
Yeah.
it's alive. If you
No, I
want
mean,
to read about
Guy,
co-living
Guy just like
operations,
wrote. Yeah, this is like your go-to book. So I mean, if you are interested in what is in that book, and if you want to start your experience, or if you want to learn more about it, you can grab your copy at this link. And so yeah, I mean, how does everything that you have been doing resonate with the concept of Vivel in your mind?
and well, I think it's very aligned, in terms of well, what I know from Wevel is also like, for example, in terms of events, like the event that you're doing in December, seems to me like rather like small, intimate, around like 40, 50 people. Is that correct? Right. And to me, that's kind of like,
Yeah,
well,
sure.
here I'm seeing like an alignment with co-living in the sense of like, if you actually go beyond a certain amount, it's not so intimate anymore. So I feel like you're creating these like cozy little hubs of people and bringing um, people together through, yeah, through building community. And I think that's really cool.
This is exactly the vibe that we would like to create, and that was coming from on or our own pain point, that we wanted to connect with people when we were at events, but we're not successful to do so because there's no intimacy, there's no like, authentic connection happening in those like big large events. So this is exactly what we're trying to do. And we are also trying to go beyond the event, so not to just like, get bounded only through the event, but just like to keep the community nurtured so that everyone gets to connect with each other, even if they were part of a different event. So now we are going to have the second edition, but we are going to bring everyone together on our community channel so that everyone keeps interacting with each other, forming those authentic connections, and even just like, having their own community gatherings all around the world. And by the way, for the audience who is interested, we only have one ticket left. By the way, you can just like send an email to us if you're interested to join, or if you want to learn more about the event. This is the link that you can visit. The event is going to be between 12th to 14th this summer in Sevilla, and we will be having groundbreaking experiences with our DJ sets, the conferences, talks, and a lot of networking. And we also have available tickets without accommodation for local people. So if you are residing in Spain and in close proximity, you can just like choose to come to the event and just be a local participant without any accommodations. So Lars, you want to add anything on top of that?
Well, I think the topic that we talk about today is kind of like the future of living. So if you feel like this is a little bit of a taste of the things you want to learn more about, then obviously during Vivel we will have a future of living panel where Guy will be on, and we're gonna have more interesting type of deep dives around this topic. So I think that that's definitely very interesting. I think that the DJ set that Guy will be doing, I think, is also going to be very special. I think we have found a location that, obviously we have the air balloon sunrise that we just released the video for on YouTube. We're going to try to get some similar type of experience on the river of Sevilla at sunrise with the Torre de Sevilla in the background. So try to get the happy to see how that experience will unfold. So yeah, I'm extremely excited for Sevilla, and at the same time, I'm also excited about the co-living concept. I'm building a lot of things myself, and I feel like Guy and myself have a lot of overlaps in thoughts. Like I'm smirking the whole time listening to what he's saying, because it's very aligned. And Mina is 100% right, and we said it kind of at the same time. Ownership is the answer to the question that Guy has of like, how can we make it that people would want to be somewhere for 10, 15 years? It's providing a sense of belonging, and on top of that, actually rewards in the form of ownership. So I think that that might answer the question. So anyone that has ideas around it, I feel like that's the places that you should look to build something. Like, I think because that's where the future lies, is like shared economy, finding ways to own stuff together, be very creative with how you raise finances. I think that's like my final thoughts on the co-living model. I think it's being very creative is going to be rewarded when you set that up the right way, and when people can like feel secure, like Guy was talking about, the essentials, if that's right, and the why is very strong, I think that you can build your concept. I have confidence that if you have those abilities to be able to deliver your message well and make the essentials done, I think you will succeed in whatever real estate project you will do, because that's what most people cannot do. So if you can do that, then you're most of the time, you're already in the 1% that's going to succeed. So that were my final thoughts, and I'm extremely excited to meet Guy in person, and at the same time, build a very great event in Sevilla and build upon that, and maybe many more, maybe in Lisbon, maybe in other places, who knows. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so much looking forward to seeing you in person again in Sevilla. And before we go, do you have any final remarks to share with our audience?
Yes, one final remark. There might be, I know that there's a lot of people I'm talking to that never had a co-living experience, or that never had, maybe you right now who's listening, you're thinking, maybe I did live with others, but never was this experience that good. And I hear that a lot. Like even me personally, I've had like some rather bad experiences of flat sharing before. My only advice is this, like, especially for everyone who hasn't tried co-living yet, give it a chance and go and experience it. Because usually what happens, like once you experience it in a place where co-living is great, then usually there's no way back. And usually what I'm hearing is like, oh, I didn't even know that living with others can be better than living by myself. And these are real feedback I've been getting. So yeah, for those who are still a bit hesitant about is co-living the right thing for me or not, just give it a try. There's nothing too much that can go wrong.
Yeah. Amazing. So if you are interested to learn more about the art of co-living, you can just like buy his book and also visit the website for more resources and details about the initiative. Thank you, Guy. It was great having you, and we're so much looking forward to having you at our event in Sevilla. And to our audience, if you are interested, please do visit our website and grab the last one ticket with the hotel. Or otherwise, if you're local, you can just like our tickets will be live soon. After that one ticket is gone, we will be releasing the local tickets without accommodation. So stay tuned for that as well. And until next time, have fun. Enjoy your weekend, everyone. Bye.